Ooh, that looks tasty.
Welcome, folks. The Hungry Gamer is back with another End of the Year Game of the Year award show. And so, if you've already checked out the nominee show, it's not like a show, right? It's just a video. But if you've already checked it out, you know that the 6 games that I nominated this year were Furnace, Hadrian's Wall, Merchant's Cove, Nidavellir, Dwellings of Eldervale, and Land vs. Sea. And what I've been doing for the past just over a month is I've been replaying these games as many times as I can at as many different player counts as I possibly can. And today I'm going to announce the final standings. And as a reminder, all of the nominees got this amazing seal that they can do whatever they want with, just to let the world know that they were nominated. But the winner is going to get this even more amazing seal that looks like that. Yeah, amazing. Now, as a quick reminder, there are some games on this list that technically were 2020. And I'm looking at Dwellings of Eldervale because that game was showing up around the time I made my nominees list last year, so it kind of missed the cutoff. And for example, Role Player Adventures might well have made the list this year, but it showed up after I made my video. So my year goes from November to November. Why? Because I like to be able to, before the year is actually out, put out this video, because I also like to be able to go back and replay the games as many times as I can. So that's the way I do it. You don't have to like it, but just so you understand, that's how I do what I do. Now, I will also say that last year, if you remember, I had 2 winners because I could not make up my mind. And this year I was in great danger of doing the same thing. I was struggling really hard to decide which of the final 2 games was going to be the game of the year, and I was almost ready to do another tie, but I played one more time today of one of the 2, and I found the thing that just gave it a slight edge over number 2. So, with all that being said, almost with all that being said, as I've said in years past, but just is good to have the reminder, the games on this list and the winner on this list is not necessarily the game that I would say is the best game in any kind of objective scientific sense. It's just the game that I personally had the most fun playing this year. And it is completely subjective. So if you're thinking, well, there's no method to that, you're right, there's not. It's just me purely saying, you know what, I think this is the top game for me. And that said, all the games are good. In fact, I think overall, this crop of 6 games is even stronger than the crop of games that I had last year in my end of the year nominees. But like I said, let's jump in. We're going to start with number 6. So now, number 6, this is, for me, the 6th best game I played this year, at least that came out this year. So this is still really good. But for me, number 6 is Furnace. And the reason this one lands at number 6 is the thematicness of it. It just doesn't have a lot going for it. Yes, it's kind of generic, making factories and capitalism and all that, which is not necessarily a theme that I'm all about, super kind of old-timey capitalism. And a lot of the art is, while it's all lovely, it doesn't pop. It doesn't make me want to go back and look closely over and over and over again like some of the other games do. That said, I love the bidding system that goes into it. I love the way even when you don't win, you're going to get something. Sometimes you want to not win specifically so you can get something, and those payouts you get, those bonuses you get by actually not winning something, I just really enjoyed. I also love that I took it with me on a school trip and played it with someone who doesn't play a lot of games. She likes the idea of games, another teacher, and we had a great time. We played it a lot, and she actually was beating me by the end of it, which is, well, awesome that the game is simple enough and clear enough that you can do that. Someone can pick up the game after I'd played a lot and then come in after 3 or 4 games, just whoop me, which I think is fantastic. So my number 6 is Furnace. Moving into my number 5. My number 5 is a game that I really like. I really like this game. It's one that I regularly say, if we only have a little bit of time, someone will say, we only got a little bit of time, so let's play this. And that one is Nidavellir. I love this game so much. I love it even more with the expansion, and it is one that is lightning fast, and it takes, like in many ways Furnace does, which takes bidding and puts a little twist on it. It's put a twist on bidding. But what this one has done is it's taken set collection and made it a thing of beauty with the way the bidding works. There's a bidding using these coins that you're going to be able to upgrade the coins so you can purposely get a bad draw. And sometimes you don't even get a bad draw if you really play the other players on the table right, in order to make your future bids more powerful. And there are enough different avenues that you can go down, that you can play, that makes this game infinitely replayable. I shouldn't say infinitely, but it feels infinitely replayable, and I really, really like it. I love the aesthetic of it. I love the kind of charcoal drawing dwarves. Everything about this game I really, really like. And the fact that it only finished at number 5 says so much about the other games on this list and how highly I think of them. Now, the next one is one that, again, was super close. It was this or Nidavellir. I was back and forth, which one? And it was a recent play that just pushed me over the edge. And so my number 4 is Hadrian's Wall. And what this game does for me, and I've said it over and over again that I love so much, is it makes me feel like I am smart. You have those times where the perpetual motion machine gets going and gets cooking, and it's just great. You feel so smart. And I had kind of settled on Nidavellir being above this game, but I revisited it recently, and I dove into the solo campaign that it came with. Now, the solo campaign is not something that is particularly magical or special, but what it is it forces you to approach the game in different ways, and that is what made it pop for me. Because it's very easy, I think, in Hadrian's Wall to kind of start doing the same things over and over again, doing the same path, because it's still very, very satisfying. But when you do this solo campaign, you start to have to try to win in different ways, and it's really hard. You suddenly are like, oh my gosh, I have to go down and build all of these things? I have to build all the monuments? I never build the monuments. Now I have to go and do that? And suddenly you have to shift the way you're thinking to approach this game in a new way. It just gave it this huge new life as a solo game, which is something that I do a lot. If a game that I can play solo inherently will usually have an advantage over games that don't, because I will sometimes come home after school, and if I had a hard day or a tiring day, I'll just sit down and just play something and relax. And I love that I can do that. And I love that the solo in this one allows you to approach the game in different ways and pushes you to do that and pushes you to find the different possibilities that exist in Hadrian's Wall. So Hadrian's Wall is my number 4. Now we're starting to get a little more separation here. And I shouldn't say separation, but I will say that 1, 2, and 3 here definitely were a step away from 4, 5, and 6, but still pretty darn close. And number 3 for me is Land vs. Sea. I really like this game. Now you're noticing a bit of a pattern here. A lot of the games on my list are smaller, lighter, and easy to get to the table. And what Land vs. Sea does for me is, one, is very easy to teach, and you can start adding in those scoring layers, which gives it that replayability that I was talking about with like Hadrian's Wall. You just get to start looking at the game in new ways. It also helps that it's just beautiful to look at. It's just stunning to look at. I love the art. I love the Easter eggs that you find on all the different tiles. And I love that I can throw this one out and play, and even when I lose, be satisfied. It is actually really satisfying to watch your opponent outplay you in Land vs. Sea, because 1, it looks cool, and 2, you have these moments where sometimes you can see what they're trying to do, and you have this lovely little back and forth while you're trying to defend against what they are doing, while at the same time trying to do something that they're trying to defend against you doing. And it's just a delight when these huge seas and huge islands get formed, or if you're playing the cartographer, suddenly you're just slowly building up these coral reefs and racking up the points, or messing around with both sides while you're trying to extend these caravans to make sure that they are perfectly balanced. And it's just a delightful game. I truly love it. And the fact that it falls at number 3 only goes to tell you how good I think number 1 and number 2 are. Now, I'm going to talk about both Merchant's Cove and Dwellings of Eldervale for just a minute, just to heighten the tension, because, you know, if I just came out and said number 2 is, it wouldn't be very interesting. You'd probably stop listening. I'm kidding. You've probably already stopped listening, and you're not even seeing this, so why am I saying it? I don't know. But, so with both Dwellings of Eldervale and Merchant's Cove, the things that they have that made them stand slightly apart for me is the complexity. As much as I love simple games that are quick and easy to get to the table, for me personally, I like a little more meat. Now, I have no desire to play Feudum. That's not true. I have a literal desire to play Feudum just to experience it, but in general, that's not the type of game I want. I don't want something that's in the 4s or close to the 5 ratings on the BGG scale. I want something a little bit less than that. I want something maybe in the high 2s and 3s, as you can tell by my choice of games that I praise every year. But what both Dwellings and Merchant's Cove have is they have a lot to offer. There are a lot of ways you can just set up the board that will change the experience. In Merchant's Cove, you have the different characters that you can pick. You have the different small modules you can put in there. You have the different rogue types that you can place out. While in Dwellings, you have all the different factions you can be. Then you can flip each faction over. Every time you play, you're going to pick different elements that are out there, which are going to change things up a little bit more. There's a couple of modules that you can add to that. And in both of them, the art is wonderful as well. Like with Land vs. Sea, the art is just wonderful. Very different. In Dwellings of Eldervale, it's very, well, it's fantasy as you normally think of fantasy, but it's just beautifully done. More realistic. While in Merchant's Cove, I think it's some of the Micho's best work. It's just this cartoony caricature style, just goofy art, which I'm a big fan of. And so I like looking at both of them. And also, both of them have very good solo modes. Just wonderful solo modes that I can sit down and throw it out and just go to town. I think the solo mode in Dwellings of Eldervale is probably a little bit tighter. It's a little bit faster for me to dive in and play. Though the one in Merchant's Cove is also very good, and along with that, they have the solo scenarios that you can play through, which really makes that pop as well. So as you can see, I'm having a hard time separating these two games. Now let's talk about playing multiplayer. I like playing multiplayer on both of them a lot. The difference on those is, what am I looking for? Am I looking for something that's a little bit more directly competitive with a little more interaction? Then I'm looking at something like Dwellings of Eldervale. You're going out there, you're chucking all these dice, you're doing combat. It's pretty quick as far as it goes once you know what you're doing. It's not a short game, but it feels like it plays pretty quick. Or am I looking for something like in Merchant's Cove, which is a little more multiplayer solitaire? Yes, you're interacting with the central board, but you're kind of doing your own thing. And so I can go for either one of those at any given day. So what I'm saying here is I'm having a hard time separating these two again. So what is it that will separate it? Well, I'll tell you in just a second, but first I'm going to tell you my number 2 game of the year, and this was really hard for me, Dwellings of Eldervale. And I'm telling you, I was this close to doing another dual award presentation or whatever you want to call it. But I thought if I did that, that would just be ridiculous to do that 2 years in a row. I love the game. I think it's fantastic. I think everyone, well, go check out my review and decide, but I think everyone who likes this type of game should own this game. It's not particularly easy to get. It's not hard to get, but it's not super easy. I think you got to get everything. It's just beautiful. The production on it is just fantastic. It's wonderful. So why did I go with Merchant's Cove? The reason I went with Merchant's Cove simply came down to, for me personally, I love asymmetry. Dwellings of Eldervale has it. It's one of the reasons I love it. But Merchant's Cove is more asymmetric. That's it! That is what made me pick between the two. They are both fantastic games. Dwellings of Eldervale is pretty much universally loved. I shouldn't say that, but people seem to love it. Merchant's Cove, in some quarters, took a little bit of a beating. But I think it's just fantastic. Yes, you have to decide, do you like the central game, the central market you're doing? And if you do, It's wonderful. And what made me pick it just slightly over Dwellings of Eldervale is I played again today, and I played with the character that is hidden in the secret stash. Spoiler, it's there, but by now you should know this. And it just plays so differently than all the other characters. I mean, all the characters play differently, but it plays so differently that I thought, oh my gosh, what a different game I am playing right now. And every different character that I play, to a lesser extent, makes me feel that way. I don't feel quite that way when I play Dwellings of Eldervale. I'm not picking my factions when I play that based on how I'm feeling in the moment. And I do that in Merchant's Cove. Dwellings of Eldervale, are all the factions different? Absolutely. As different? Not quite. And so there you have it, folks. That is my game of the year and the winner of this amazing seal, which I hope the designers get tattooed on the smalls of their back, or they can put it on the box. Whatever, I don't care. But I think the game is, for someone who likes a medium weight Euro game, it's just fantastic. I think all these games are fantastic. I really adore them all. And I think the fine folks at Breaking Games, and then Luke Laurie, the designer, and Peter Vaughn, who is now with Cardboard Alchemy, but was instrumental to bringing Dwellings of Eldervale to fruition, did an amazing thing, and I cannot wait for the spiritual successor to Dwellings of Eldervale that I know Cardboard Alchemy is working on, and there is a very good chance we're going to see them back on this list in a couple years. I'm super excited for it. I love Dwellings of Eldervale, but for me, I had this much more fun with Merchant's Cove this year, simply because I have all the characters and they are just so different. So there you have it, folks. That is my game of the year for 2021. Go ahead and come at me down in the comments. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me which of these games should have been number one. Tell me why, really, even from what I've just said, why Dwelling should have been boop, in Merchant's Cove right down there. Or tell me I had just nailed it. Whatever you want. In fact, tell me what games you are looking forward to for next year that are coming, that delivered in December or even November, because I really want to know your thoughts. So, as always, if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.